Welcome to another episode of The Path to You. Today I'm here with my dear friend Regina Leo.
Hey everybody.
Ironically, we met about, 1998. Oh my God, 20 years ago in this probably spot, good old St. Joseph-Notre Dame High School.
In front of this gym.
Yeah.
Class of 02.
It's probably where we met for PE. Definitely where I met Romo. Gym's right there. Played a lot of basketball there. The rest of the school is here. Maybe we'll go for a tour later. Who knows? But as we start every episode, Regina, how did you get here?
So ironic that you are doing this podcast here at the campus of St. Joe's because I literally grew up here. And I got here by the grace of God. I truly believe that He had His fate for me here, because where I am now, of just completely passionate about my career as a counselor for students, I don't think I would be here without this foundation that I had starting in the elementary school right across the street, and being surrounded by such caring educators and just adults and people, kids, adults, and even today I was with my high school counselor and a friend from high school, and I was just on this hike just thinking about how, wow, this all came to be because of growing up in this small campus, a small community that surrounded me with such wonderful people.
Yeah. So Miss Levy went. Counselor.
Yes, my counselor, Jennifer Levy, went. And
Jennifer, we can call her that.
Yeah, we can call it that now. We don't have to go formal with the missus. And so I truly believe that my life was destined starting here as a young child.
Did Miss Levy want Jennifer? Did she inspire you to be a counselor?
Oddly enough, no.
Okay.
Because I remember being in the counseling office and really grateful for all the services and support that they gave us, and helping us with our direction. But I always thought I can't see myself guiding students. And when I was younger, I actually thought I was going to be a teacher or a pediatrician.
Interesting.
And being in biology class across the street here in Marianus Hall, in good old Miss Dean's anatomy class, I'm like, I'm gonna be a pediatrician. And no, it actually did not happen until I started interning in with elementary school kids, knowing that, oh, I like this, I'm doing this for free, I can actually do this and get paid. So I did not ever imagine growing up that I was gonna be a counselor.
So for those that don't know, can you explain what you do now?
So what I do now is I am actually a academic and personal counselor for college students and high school students. So I shifted from elementary to middle school, high school, to now college, and this is where I had imagined that I would be. When I was doing the K through 12 counseling, I really liked it, and I thought I want to see what's on the other side in higher education. So that's what I'm doing now.
And how long was that process to get from working with elementary school students to college students? It's
my process of getting to where I am now and knowing that this is what I wanted to do and continue on to do. It started in 2000 and I want to say it was 2004 because I did internships.
Okay. And
knowing that there was so much need with not only academic needs, but suicidal risk and at-risk youth, I just thought I want to be a part of this helping field.
Right.
So,
right.
Yeah.
And when did you decide to go from teacher to counselor?
Oh, good question, because I did start as an intern teacher. I think it was when I got selected for a peer counseling place in Davis, UC Davis, where I went to college, called The House, and seeing the powerful effects that you can do just by listening and talking to people, and doing more listening than talking, that's what really confirmed it for me that so many people out there really need somebody to just listen and validate what they're going through, because life can be so up and down and have obstacles. And so when I started having that intrinsic reward feeling of people need, it feels good to have people have somebody to listen. And that's when I switched from teacher to I want to be a counselor.
Got it. So I'm going to go deep.
Okay.
You kind of brought it up already. So you said that, you're starting to see you know, you're not just counseling students on academics, but you're counseling them on suicide, on, you know, underserved areas. What, as a counselor, what do you think needs to shift to lower the suicide rates, to lower the shootings in schools? You're in it, so what do you think needs to change?
Interesting question, because we just came from yoga, and I think taking it back to the simple act of just slowing down and being and giving human beings a chance to just talk and be heard and to slow down and breathe. I truly believe that kids nowadays are really having a lot more pressure on them in terms of, I have to be a certain way, I have to look a certain way, and I can't just say it's just coming from home, you know, it's coming from all around, from the media, and when you and I were growing up, a lot of it was coming from printed magazines, you know, and that was what we were looking at as, we have to look a certain way and be a certain way, and now it's just in their faces all the time of how to be. And I think that one of the most therapeutic things that you can do for a human being, young and old, is just to give them a chance to be paid attention to, and just to really show them love, and to not judge them, and to I know this sounds cliche, but I really believe that having that human connection of, I'm truly here because I care about you, especially when you never know what kind of story or what's going on inside an individual's mind, and to really try to tackle the school shootings and the suicidal crisis. It's not easy, you know, and I think that little baby steps, like I said in the beginning, of simple acts of just human connection and compassion, that can go further than I think a lot of people believe.
Going back to how you first started the conversation, is, you know, you said it was the grace of God that brought you here. How big of a role has God played in your life, and what does that role look like for you? Because we grew up very similar backgrounds, you know, military dad, in Alameda, really diverse, like really lucky and blessed to have grown up here. But I feel like once I got to middle school, maybe even high school, religion just became this, it wasn't powerful, where I feel like it was very powerful throughout your life. I always kind of believed in this higher being, but there was a point where I stopped like going to church, I stopped listening to the sermons or whatever you want to call them. So how has that played a role in your life and continue to play a role?
So to help me answer that question, I actually forgot in the beginning, I can't believe I forgot to mention my dear parents. Of course I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for them. Like, thanks, Mom and Dad. I think
it's
that
an immaculate conception, but
So I think that growing up with grandparents and parents who modeled faith for me, it really, yes, we did the religious practices of praying the rosary and the novenas. That did not follow me when I became an adult. I prayed my own way. I became more in this conversational relationship with God, and yes, I pray the rosary, but not like I did growing up, because I would see them doing it, and I believe in the healing powers of what it can feel like when you're praying so deeply with the rosary. However, mine is more a conversational connection. And I think where it started molding was going back to as a child and seeing and hearing my parents and my grandparents and aunts and uncles saying that this is out of our control. You know, you just surrender this to God. And I didn't start believing in the power of surrendering to something, however you want to believe, until I became an adult on my own. You know, it's that there are still certain things in life that I'm like, I wish I could control this, but I can't. But knowing that things work out for the best, and truly believing that part, that's really has been my shift in relationship in my faith. And that's not how I was growing up here. You know, it's you can say that I went to school, Catholic school, for 13 years. However, it was my spiritual connections in where I live now that really showed me that I can make this my own. And to see what has worked out in terms of certain job positions didn't work out, but other ones did. And certain people who are no longer in my life and other people who are in my life, and seeing that working out, I started believing that it was that if you're a believer in the fact that you truly can surrender your life to someone or something, doesn't matter if you're not Catholic, just if you just know that you can let go of that control, it really helped me to be more at peace in my life, and to really believe that people and things will happen in your life for a reason. And I believe that comes down to faith.
Yeah. Oh, I had a really good question to come off of this, but then I went into like, it's so crazy that we believe the same thing. Where you might say you put your faith in God, I would say I put my faith in the universe. But it's the same thing.
Right.
I think I'm still coming to terms with the term God, having shunned it for so many years, and like really just had a disdainful taste for how I was brought up with the Catholic Church, and you know, the priest talking about homosexuality being bad during the homily and things like that. And so it's so, and I think that's one of the beautiful things about like our friendship with us and with Robin and Quinn Allison, is that we all have this kind of similar belief, but in very different ways.
Exactly.
And that we can all be such different people, but have this aligning factor.
Right.
What was the question I was gonna ask you? Faith. Oh, so there is a question that I want to ask you about your faith and how it affects your counseling. But before that, you said that when you found your kind of community in the Catholic Church in Sacramento, which I know is the Jesuit kind of population.
Correct.
What is different about the Jesuit way of Catholicism versus like LaSallian or you know what we were, I don't even know what St. Joseph is.
True, I don't know either. Good question. What I understand from, and what has worked for me and many of my fellow young adult family, I can say, that the Jesuit community really believes in coming as you are. And there's the Catholic rules, right? And I have to say that they are rules. Some people might not look at those as rules, but I do. And I noticed head on when I first stepped into a Jesuit church and I listened to a Jesuit priest say this sermon, I'm like, whoa, this is a lot like unconditional positive regard in Rogerian. This is Carl Rogers, is one of my favorite psychologists, theorists with counseling practice. Unconditional positive regard. And that when the Jesuit priests are giving their sermons, not to say that other orders, Catholic orders, aren't going to do this, I'm just speaking for the Jesuits, that I noticed that when they speak to you, it's like they are applying, I shouldn't say it's like it is, they are applying life. And it's not a contingency, like if you do this, this is how life will be for you.
Right.
And as soon as I started hearing that, I stopped church hopping in Sacramento. I found my home.
Got it.
And it didn't matter who was giving the sermon. I'm like, I really like this. It's like, even though you're speaking to a whole congregation, I feel like you're talking to me. And not a Sunday goes by or a Saturday when I go to Mass when I don't feel like the priest is talking to me. And it's because it's so life applicable, and that was something that I never really got from a lot of the churches here in the Bay Area that I went to. I did get it from some priests here at St. Joseph, I did. But it wasn't enough to draw me in to the point where I started really putting it into practice with the Ignatian, the Jesuit priests follow Ignatius of Loyola, his practices. And Ignatius really did live his life on, just like Jesus' stories of loving people unconditionally, no matter what. And I think that's how people should be treated in general. You brought up homosexuality, and that I know that in the Jesuit church, they really mean that we named the young adult minister who started our young adult ministry, named it Come As You Are, because he meant that. Doesn't matter what you're coming in, what baggage, LGBT community, doesn't matter, you're coming in. And you really do feel that when you step through those doors. And I think that following how St. Ignatius's life was, and knowing that he really did have an unconditional love for human beings, it changed my views on the Catholic rules that I grew up with. And knowing that, yes, there are things written in the Bible and there are things that you learn in church. However, I never get that feeling of you have to follow this when I walk out of a Jesuit mass.
So what do you, it's almost like they're not necessarily telling you to follow the rules.
It's up to you.
Okay.
And when you go to, for example, like when I go into reconciliation with a Jesuit priest, I feel so freed because it's like they are telling me that don't be so hard on yourself. That Catholic guilt, you know? They're like, don't be so hard on yourself. Your penance is to go breathe.
Yeah.
Go breathe and go love yourself. Go. It's like they're telling me to do. One time, it's like they told me to meditate, and I'm like, oh, okay.
Interesting. Because like when you told me that you were going, or that you had reconciliation, I was like, why are you still doing that?
Yeah.
Like, you have your conversations with God. Why do you have to go talk to a priest?
It's that human interaction.
And is it the human interaction where you're like, they're giving you forgiveness, or is it the human interaction of like, here's where I am in my life, and I just need some guidance?
I think it's a mixture of both, and I call it like what Robin and I talk about. It's like a spiritual bath. For me, yes, I do believe that what a priest once said in one of the churches in San Leandro, it stood out to me. He said that even before you step into that reconciliation room, God already knows what you're going in there for. You're forgiven. Like, you don't even need to have that guilt on you.
Right.
So for me, it's more like I want to, for lack of better words, seal the deal, kind of thing, where I'm like, I want to talk to somebody to have that healing process of, I hear the words of what the priest is telling me, and then when I leave, I'm in prayer mode and spirituality mode. And so that is such a healing process for me.
Interesting.
It's less about the guilt and more about the spiritual healing process.
Got it. Because you're still the one that's going through your process.
Right.
It's your healing.
Right.
It's just this person is giving you some guidance.
Correct.
As to how to heal.
Correct.
Or pulling it out of you. Because essentially, like, you're your own healer.
Right.
But it's always nice to have a guide.
And it's a validation, right? And it's that feeling of, it's as though I did a pit stop counseling session.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Got it. So going back to the question about your faith and how it affects your counseling, do you think that if you didn't have your faith, you would be as effective as a counselor?
No. But I have to answer that quickly, because even though I work in a public institution, the way that I counsel my students is with that compassion and that empathy, and really learning how to listen and be with them, and how I ask questions, and giving that different options, and like, especially when a student is having suicidal ideation, and I'm talking to them and saying open-ended questions, and knowing that there's a light at the end of the tunnel, and those kinds of things, I think that they stem from my foundation in a Christian upbringing.
Right.
Of that, if you think about these kind of things, can you see yourself seeing another reason to be here, to stay?
Right.
Even though I can't mention God, it's the types of questions that I'm asking, and the way that I'm responding is, I would say, it's very Christian-like.
It's so interesting that you say it's very Christian-like, because my experience with the Christian church is very different. Where I remember going to a mass, it was like my first kind of mega Christian church, and they were shaming people. And I was like, wait, this isn't right. You are shaming your own congregation for being who they are.
Yeah.
If you don't think that they should be acting a certain way, like, there's another way to talk about this. But like shaming parents for putting their kids in multiple activities, being the helicopter parents, being the parent that, or being a stay-at-home mom that goes to yoga and wears Lululemon pants, like, that's fine.
Yeah.
Address it in a different way. Like, don't shame them for it.
Right.
So when you're saying compassion, Christian way, like, I'm not making that correlation. How did we get this disconnect between compassion and Christianity?
That question, that boggles my mind myself. That I don't, because I walk into certain churches like that mega church, because I have friends who go to those churches, and I'm like, I don't agree with a lot of the things that they say, because my community is talking about immigration and families and values that are not in a way that shames you.
Right.
And I think that if I were to have lived during the time of Jesus Christ, which is what I mean when I say Christian.
Don't swat at the bee.
Oh, I didn't know it was a bee. I thought it was a moth.
I'm sure it was a bee.
Thought it was a bee. I'm bad.
Should be in bed by now.
I don't know why I sat awake. So I think that maybe the human dipping into it has affected the way that, say, Jesus were alive today. And if he truly is how he has been painted to be for us, that's where I think the human touch muddles it. And that's where I think the disconnect comes in.
Got it.
And I am in no way, shape, or form somebody who is a preacher or anything like that.
Yeah.
But I am saying this from my genuine belief that when you start putting human judgment into things, especially when it comes to people's beliefs and values and faith and their life in general, it completely takes away from what you could be doing so powerfully with those people in your church.
Right. And no offense to people who are a part of the megachurch.
Yes, not at all. It's just what our experiences have been.
Yeah.
And I have been to a wonderful baptism for a friend at a Christian church that's huge Baptist church, and just saw and felt the love going into that church. So it really does depend on where you're going.
Yeah, for sure.
So we are not talking about all churches that are mega churches. Yeah.
Cool. So if somebody is interested in becoming a counselor, what advice would you give to them?
I think it's very important to really get your feet wet, because there's a difference between I want to be there to help people and listen versus actually having what we call humanistic approaches to really have a person in front of you, whether that be your client or your student, whichever line of work that you have. And if you're a licensed therapist, for example, there's an approach that you have to have with the people who are going to be your clients. And I think that had it not been for the many internships that I experienced, I would not have confirmed it that I wanted to do this. Because I think that without experiencing it and putting your feet in the doors of experiencing, listening to different people's stories, you can't just get that from the books. Like, yes, I got my master's in counseling and I enjoyed every single one of those books that we read. Yes, you have the theories that you're practicing, that you gravitate toward. However, at the end of the day, you're also your own best person to combine all those theories for really figure out, is this really for me, based on how you are feeling when your different people are telling you their stories. And if you're the type of person that, for example, is going to get super stressed out and it's going to be unhealthy for you, that you are listening to individuals' stories and it's getting to the point where it's bothering you, maybe this not be the career for you.
Got it.
And then the only way that you can really, really experienced that is to get in it.
Yeah.
You know, just like any job out there. Like, you don't just want to become a doctor just because.
Right.
Get in it and experience seeing blood and the different types of ins and outs that go into a hospital every day.
Right. And the many hours you have to
Yes,
put in.
and the many hours. And if you realize that, just like with any career or job position, if it's getting in the way of your life balance, maybe reconsider and shift things a little bit, because what you want one day you may not want 5-10 years from now.
Final question. Talk about, because you work with a lot of dreamers, and that's something you're really passionate about.
Definitely.
So I guess it's a two-part question. One, how did you become so passionate about the dreamers? And two, you have a scholarship. If you could talk about that as well.
Sure. So just as I've been talking about listening to people's stories, it was just that got me passionate about dreamers. I was very fortunate to be able to work in a highly immigrant first-generation population in the middle school and high school where I worked, and they were so vulnerable with me. I was their only counselor, and it was the only thing I needed to do every day is to make sure that I was there for each and every one of my students. And the dreamers would come in, my students would just spill their stories to me, their fears, their dreams. Their parents would do the same thing. And when I would hear their stories and I would read their essays, when they would be writing their essays for college admissions, I realized that when my heart would just be pulled, like I literally had this like feeling that would connect from my heart to my stomach. That's when I knew that there's something going on, there's something moving in me, there's a fire burning. And I enjoy so much working with every student from different backgrounds. There was just something that was really pulling me when it came to dreamer immigrants. And I think it's because I saw, I saw how hard they worked. Working jobs, their parents in the fields, their children in the fields. Working, why? Not because they wanted to. Who wants to work under the burning sun in the fields? They were doing it because they truly wanted to contribute to society and to really strive for a better life, and really improve their family's life, and to know that they could defy the odds. Even though their future is uncertain, to know that I'm going to do whatever I can to defy the odds inspired me to be a better person in terms of not complaining about stupid things and really valuing life, the smallest little blessings and fortunate things in life. And just reading their stories and hearing their stories really made me realize I want to do more. And so moving into the college system, that's one of the reasons why I feel so good working in the college system, because I can do more with them in terms of they're in here now, let's help them continue. And I have friends who are dreamers themselves, and knowing how far they've come with getting their degrees, moving on to their master's degrees, and defying the odds truly. There's knowing that my friend and I who have co-founded this Dreamer Scholarship, to answer that question, we wanted to do more, and we're starting off small, with $250 for 3 scholarships and awarded those, but we want to do more as the future goes on in fundraising, because these kids that are now young adults who are eventually planning on maybe becoming parents themselves have a story to tell, and we want to build on those stories.
Where can people find out about this scholarship?
It's not quite public yet. We're working on it. It's private for a certain high school in a district that's supporting us in Sacramento. But when that time comes, when we're hoping to get approval to be more Sacramento region, I will be posting those online and having you help me to get that publicized. So, work in progress.
Cool. Yeah. Anything else that you want to share?
I think just to wrap all of this up, I think it's really important to take a step back and think about, where do you come from, and where do you come from, and how do you believe that all that you've been through in life has brought you to here today.
Yeah.
Because oftentimes with the hustle and bustle of life, we may not take a moment to do that. And this lovely lady right here has helped me and many of our close friends to stop and smell the roses and slow down and think about things like this that are so important to have that story. And if I have kids one day, which I hope I do, it's to have those moments of talking about life and really the things that I'm talking about now, I probably would have answered differently when I was here in St. Joe's. I would have had a totally different response going on those retreats that we did.
Totally.
So yeah, take a moment to think about where you come from and how you believe you got to this place that you are in now.
Dope. Thanks, Regina.
And thank you for your time and attention.
Yeah. I think we'll definitely do a part 2 with where we came from and coming from immigrant parents. And
oh yeah, definitely. Yes, yes, because we are immigrants ourselves.
Yep.
With our families.
Most stuff. That's it. You can't even see us anymore. That's okay.
Peace out, everyone.
Much love.
Much love.
Thank you. Bye.